we have this checklist from last time. And so, when we're thinking about an email being clear, is it simple to talk about how the prospect's world can be better? Does your CTA make sense? Do they have to think hard? You don't want your prospect to have to think hard, typically. Does it flow? When it's concise, it just needs to be short. I'll say on that one. Generally speaking, does it sound like a real person? Relevant, to Celia's point, you need to speak to people about what they care about because they unfortunately don't care about you typically. And so it's what is it that they're actually trying to do right now in the language that they're thinking about, not necessarily what you think they should be doing. And try to paint a picture with what you're saying. And then making it personal, why them, why now? There's a balance between kind of personalization and scale that I think we'll talk about a little bit later. But they need to see that the email is for them, essentially.
Like, let's assume that the emails are landing in people's inboxes. We'll leave the whole deliverability conversation for a different stream. Mm-hmm. That first piece of, like, if I look at the top of the funnel, is really getting their attention and getting them to open the email in the first place. And so how do you, what does it look like? And how do you think about subject lines?
Yeah, absolutely. So people get a lot of emails. A little less so in Canada. Maybe that's because I'm not high up on the totem pole. I'm sure Colin gets a lot of emails still. But you have to figure out how to stand out amongst all of, that crowd. And so there's, a few ways to do that. But generally speaking, what we found to be, not quite a formula, but a good guideline for approaching subject lines is 1 to 3 words, roughly. Shorter is better. I think sales law research shows that 1 word actually has the highest open rates. But that's not always super feasible. But a couple words that are relevant to the prospect and what they care about, but are somewhat ambiguous. So they need to go into that email to really understand what you're talking about. Bonus point if it's related to, if it's something that could potentially be like an internal email, as long as you're not leading them astray and that there is congruence to your actual, from your subject line to your email. Yeah, so kind of some examples of this and their open rates. So these were across 3 email cadence. Just user conversion. 2 words, simple, was relevant to that particular persona. I can't remember exactly what this campaign was, but across 3 emails had 69% open rates. I did one. We were targeting customer support leaders in e-commerce, and the question was, or the subject line was order status? ? Oh. Now you can't do that unless your email is very clearly related to that, and it was. It was related to, them being overwhelmed by order status requests and it taking up too much time for their reps. So be careful that you're not being clickbaity, but you want them to wonder, like, oh, what is this? And see that this is relevant to them.
Celia, what's your thoughts on the sort of, what did you call it? What was it, Jonathan? Order confirmation?
Order status? ?
I bet you that would get a huge response rate, wouldn't it?
It worked pretty well. It did. We had a 57% open rate. But again, it was the message was very clearly about that topic. So we weren't leading people astray. Just a little bit, but not.
That's fair.
In a questionable way.
That's sort of how I always approach it as well. Taking a couple words from the body of the actual email you're sending, I find performs quite well. So just like whatever you're making mention of in that email, throw 2 or 3 words of that into the subject line. Usually you'll get people to answer.